Good morning, everyone. How are you? I'm Marin Gelinos, board member of New Jersey Public Health Innovation PAC. Today, I am joined by my fellow board member and co-founder, Melanie Dragon. Hi, Melanie.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
We are really excited to bring you, our viewers, live once again on the PAC chat. Today, we bring you yet another primary election endorsement for 2022. This morning, we're excited to bring you Dr. Akil Khalfani of Congressional District 10, who is up against incumbent Donald Payne Jr. in the Democratic Party. Stay tuned. We're going to bring him on in just a little bit. But first, we just want to welcome you to the PAC chat, whether this is the first time you're joining us or if you've been following the PAC or already a contributor. Thank you and welcome. Over the past few years, we've seen at both the national and state level a deliberate infringement on our health sovereignty with things like overreaching medical mandates, repeals on exemptions, and micromanagement of health data. And as a result, you, like many others, may feel disempowered by your own individual abilities to protect your bodily autonomy, and perhaps with the lack of transparency and informed consent, maybe with the stripping of your parental rights in New Jersey and beyond. This is why we launched NJPHIPAC and created this innovative platform to give you, our community, the opportunity to meet key political players, influential people in our state who share our determination to protect and preserve our individual health choices, and who ultimately will help us get this state and country back on track. After all, health, public health is and can only be the product of the personal health of every single man, woman, and child in the community. And when our elected officials respect the health of each of us individually, they will be cultivating the health of all of us collectively as a community. So now I'm going to pass it over to Melanie to elaborate a little further on who we are as a PAC and review our endorsement process. Melanie?
Thanks so much, Marin. So NJPHIPAC is a nonprofit, nonpartisan New Jersey state political action committee. We are an organization made up of deeply committed and experienced advocates across a myriad of professional backgrounds who form this PAC with one mission: to protect and strengthen the constitutionally guaranteed and fundamental rights of all New Jersey residents to make medical decisions for themselves and their family members without coercion or undue constraint. Our primary goal in forming NJPHIPAC is to give the power back to the people of New Jersey by elevating political candidates and influencers who will either help or hurt that mission. Our endorsement process was developed with a set of standards and integrity. Every endorsement we make requires at minimum that the candidate complete and submit the NJPHIPAC survey and participate in an in-depth interview with the board of directors. Other factors and considerations are prior voting records of the candidate, if there are any, and their public positions or statements on matters that affect our mission. Ultimately, the NJPHIPAC standards are to endorse candidates with transparency, integrity, and measurement without bias. To be an integral resource to New Jersey voters in this 2022 election year, our aim is to guide you to where your votes are warranted. The primaries are an important race, and this is how we choose the best candidate to take the general election. The 2022 congressional race in New Jersey is an opportunity for you, New Jersey voters, to ensure health freedom and parental rights is represented statewide and nationally. When you see the NJPHIPAC Gold Seal endorsement, you can rest assured that this is the best candidate for our collective mission. Our 2022 Congressional Endorsement Guide will be out very soon. And in the meantime, our current and future endorsements can always be found on our website at njphipac.org/endorsements. Another note for our viewers today is you can give a little to help a lot. NJPHIPAC is a statewide grassroots PAC. We rely on contributions from New Jersey voters, such as yourself, to be successful. There's no corporate funding behind us, no ties to any industry. We rely solely on the support of you, our donors, to influence political elections here in the state of New Jersey. All contributions that we receive are used 100% to directly influence key campaigns across the state of New Jersey. Donations allow us to support the candidates' campaigns who align with our mission. The support increases their exposure and influences the elections and seats candidates who will advocate on behalf of New Jersey residents. Like we saw with many of the new incoming elected candidates in 2021, New Jersey legislative race who NJPHIPAC got behind this past November. So I'm going to, Marin, it's your turn.
So thank you, Melanie. All right, so let's just talk about District 10. Okay, so for those unfamiliar with the geography of District 10, this includes parts of Essex, Hudson, and Union counties. So without further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing a congressional candidate in the District 10 Democrat primary, Dr. Akil Khalfani. Good morning, Dr. Akil. How are you? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Good morning to you. How are you doing?
Wonderful. So first of all, on behalf of the PAC board, we want to extend our congratulations to you on this endorsement. And we want to thank you for outwardly taking a stand on all of the important issues that the PAC stands for. So thank you and congratulations.
Well, I want to say thank you and let you know and all the viewers know that I'm really excited about this endorsement. And really what I see, not just an endorsement, but a partnership of ideas to really champion the ideas that we as individuals, as families, have the power to and should have the power and the rights to determine how we're going to position our families and what we're going to do with and for our families with regard to healthcare.
Yes, thank you for that. I know when we as a PAC go through our endorsement process, we have all of the candidates that are even we would consider for an endorsement fill out a survey and also meet with the PAC. And I recall meeting with you on that call, and I just found your background so fascinating and the work that you do. So why don't you just give our viewers a little background of who you are and what made you enter this race to begin with in District 10?
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm a father of four, a husband, and a longtime community activist right here in New Jersey in the 10th district, but in really throughout the U.S., but largely in New Jersey. I'm currently a professor of sociology and African studies at Essex County College in Newark, New Jersey. I earned my master's and my PhD in sociology from the University of Pennsylvania. And I've been working, as a scholar, but also as a community liaison for many years. I used to serve on the Human Relations Commission in West Orange, and I also served on the Newark and Essex County Commission to End Homelessness. And I've had several other boards and responsibilities that I both currently and have had in the past. And, just really working hard to push the envelope on these kinds of things and finding ways to bring health to our community. We organized every year a health and wellness expo. And that's something I've been doing for many years now. And just continuing the idea of exposing people to ways to understand both the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and their own contributions to health so that we can be agents for our own health and agents for for change.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's really going to resonate with our community and our viewers, especially. Melanie, do you want to jump in with a question?
Yes. So as mentioned earlier, things accelerated very quickly here in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And we were faced with masking, lockdowns, vaccine mandates for employment, coercion, including state employees, school personnel, and healthcare workers. Many have also been affected by this on so many different levels. Can you share with us your thoughts on these requirements and how this has affected your campaign in your community? Are you talking about these issues? tell us?
Yes. So, first and foremost, obviously, we were all affected tremendously, in terms of what the impact of the pandemic is and how that has played itself out. My children had to go to school remotely. We had at the school, the everything went remote at Essex County College and many of the college universities. As a matter of fact, my son, who was at North Carolina State, had to go remote and came home to finish his semester there. So, the unknown that this whole situation created put people in trying to make decisions about the health and safety of their families and of the people around them, their loved ones, their neighbors. And as we try to navigate that, we see that, that sometimes the government does the things that it sees as best, but sometimes the challenges that we don't always get adequate insight from the people whom it affects the most. And so what we ended up seeing with the masking and the vaccine requirement ultimately, and all these other kinds of measures, is that that there was lots of tension and there was confusion and mixed messaging. And I think that folks who are in government have to be very careful about delivering mixed messages. Do you mask? Don't you mask? Is mask required or mask not required? All the kinds of things that we saw that happened over the last 2+ years, that we have to think seriously about those things and make sure that we're creating space for parents and families to be advocates for what they see are necessary. And then the challenge becomes, well, okay, if you're see yourself in a particular way, how do you navigate that space that you're in when you're interacting with others? And so then that created tensions. And so there was tensions between people who were masking and not masking, people who were considering or getting the vaccine and people who didn't. And so those were all important places for us to realize that in the end, we need to make sure that it's that things that go into people's bodies, that they have the ultimate decision making, and there should be no mandates in my regard, in my the way I see it, and I would not advocate for that in Congress. That there couldn't be a time or place where we would say that everybody is required to have this vaccine or this other kind of medication because of one thing or another. Because I think that when we do that, we look at what's happened here, that there's so many people who've had adverse reactions. And I know we'll get into later about the implications of those adverse reactions, hopefully, and why people, if we mandate that, then there's other kinds of things we have to look at. And I think it's very important for people to have the power of choice, the power of their consideration when we're thinking about things that you can't reverse, right? You can't, if someone gets an injection of something, you can't take that out. So it's extremely important to me that the government makes that takes a serious consideration when we're talking about something like that.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that answer.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yes, I have another question. So we want to give our viewers a little bit more of a sense of where you stand and what you'll advocate for as a representative in Congress, right? Because a lot of the issues that we've talked about and that many of us advocates have been fighting for have been more on the state level and sometimes on the local level. Mm-hmm. But now we're talking about the federal level. So from that standpoint, can you just give us a sense for what issues you would advocate for federally?
So I think the things that you all have been working for on a state level is a good benchmark for advocating and thinking about that on a federal level, that we should have autonomy, that people must have the right to make their own choices. And like I was saying before, in terms of as we think about what the federal government does, that we want to introduce legislation that ensures that that people have the right and that it can't be taken away. That if those rights are taken away, then at the state level, then it becomes other kinds of challenges. And I want to make sure that we introduce legislation that ensures that that families, that individuals are the ones who are making the final decisions. Now, I think it's government's responsibility to create measures to, if people want to take vaccines, to have them available to them, to make other kinds of health choices about things that happen to them. But there also should be in that legislation something that says that the person has the right. So whether it's a religious exemption or other kinds of exemptions, that they should be in place, and that they should not be something that there shouldn't be anything that someone could unravel that, and in terms of when someone's going to work, that they would have a requirement that supersedes the legislation. And I think that that's the kind of legislation we need, something that is that maintains its standing both in public but also in the workplace and for students at school, right? That this is a huge piece of discussion to talk about, whether it's vaccines or other things that children are being required to have certain things. And we already have a vaccine schedule, but then we have to be mindful to make sure that that there aren't forced vaccines, that there aren't as long as there's that exemption there, that then that gives the people who see that there's a problem with it, whether they have allergic reactions or they have from some of the substances within vaccines, or they have a religious contention or issue with having vaccines. All of those things should be considered, and those are things that we're going to be pushing legislation to advocate for on a national level.
Yeah, and I think that's where we would like to see candidates really being proactive in protecting and preserving rights, as opposed to how I think many of us feel little by little rights are being kind of chipped away, things are being taken away, whereas we want to protect and preserve. And now, as a PAC who's focused on public health, we also want to make sure that we're very clear that nobody is looking to eradicate vaccines. There's a time and place for them, and we hope that they're available to those that choose to take them. Mm-hmm. But I think where we've kind of swung the pendulum a little bit too far is when we get to the point where we're saying it's this or your job. You right. Either go through with this medical intervention or you lose your job, or you can't participate in society. And I think that's where it gets kind of a real infringement on people's bodily autonomy and free will. And it's just a basic human right to get to decide what gets injected into your body. So many great points there. I really appreciate you sharing that. I do love the idea of being proactive, excuse me, at a federal level. There was something else in there I wanted to mention. Maybe I'll come back to it. I guess, so one of the things I did want to mention is if there's viewers that are new to learning about the PAC is a bipartisan or nonpartisan organization. So we endorse candidates on both sides of the aisle. So whether you're Democrat, Republican, we want to hear from you. We want you to fill out our survey, and we want to speak to you. And we want to know, no matter what party line you're on, if you support the right to get to decide what gets injected into your body or your children's body, and the right to make parental decisions. So I love that you are running in the Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. You are running against an incumbent, Donald Payne Jr. I'd love to hear from you when it comes to party lines. Yeah. Do you feel like you will be reaching across the aisle when you get into Washington? Will you be reaching across the aisle to the Republicans and try to affect this proactive change together regarding these issues?
I really appreciate that question. I mean, because this is to me one of the main areas that I intend to address. And when we look at it, one of the major challenges in Congress is stalemate. And as a sociologist, I'm a consensus builder. I'm someone who's able to have what I call courageous conversations. And I think that if we are going to really be able to have any kind of legislative impact, we need to be able to talk to people regardless of their party, Democrats, Republicans, and see what those ideas are. And in that courageous conversation, sometimes you might hear some stuff you don't like, and then you have to figure out how you navigate that space. What is it that you have to do collectively, regardless of party, to bring about some legislation? Because legislation is to get legislation passed. It takes a conversation across the table, and I'm looking to hear what my other colleagues have to say. Yes, I'm running as a Democrat, and at the same time, I am someone who is going to make sure that even a person, I don't care if you're a libertarian, a Democrat, or a Republican, wherever you sit on the political spectrum, if there's someone there who's elected, then we've got to have conversations so that we can get something done. And the people, as I've been out here on the campaign trail, talk about how frustrated they are with the stalemate, and that we're sitting here, we're not getting any movement. And we're getting no movement because we're sitting in a place where we're creating a wall against something. And I understand the politics of that, but at some point we've got to get to a place where we can have a conversation to move the dialogue, because otherwise it becomes about us as individuals, as politicians, as opposed to the people who elected us. See, our thing is that we have to attend to the needs, the concerns, and the voices of those who elected us. And if we're not doing that, then we failed at our job, and we should sit down and have someone else take it. So I'm a type of person who's going to be making sure that the voices of the people of the 10th Congressional District, the state of New Jersey, are heard. And then as we move this thing is on a national level, that the voices of the people of the United States are heard.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And I totally agree with you. I think there's not enough coming together. There's one side or the other side, and everybody in the middle, where the majority of people are just getting lost in the conversation. So I think you bring such energy, such reasonability, and to District 10. And I really am so hopeful that you win in the primary. So I have one other question that I wanted to bring up. It's about the National Vaccine Compensation Act, which Ronald Reagan signed in 1986. Now, this act, for those of you that are new to hearing about it, it ensured essentially that vaccine manufacturers could not be held liable for any adverse reaction or death that came from any vaccine at the time or any future vaccines. Can you share with us your thoughts on that? This is something that, happened at a federal level, and we'd like to hear your thoughts on if there's anything you would want to do to change this and make vaccine companies liable again.
I mean, I'd like to see that kind of legislation rescinded, basically. When we look at that, and even with the Emergency Use Act for the COVID vaccines, that when you look at those things, that basically people are not, there's no accountability, right? And what that means is that if someone gets injured by the vaccines, or medical device, or whatever they may be, that then there's no one responsible for it. And I think that that's atrocious. And so that's something that I definitely will advocate for, and strive to put forth some legislation to rescind that, so that we have a level of accountability. And even in New Jersey, we're in a state that has lots of pharmaceutical companies. I think that we've got to come back to the table with them and have conversations, even with the pharmaceutical industry, to say, look, I understand why this was passed, but at this point in time, that the reality is that we need you to be more accountable, and that if you have complete immunity, then that means that even the ways in which you develop things, that you may be developing them understanding that you don't have that accountability. And we want you to realize that we're going to be pushing for that level of accountability, because if someone to me, it goes back to some levels of even when you look at what happened when they had the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, right? So these people there was no accountability. We have to have, what are the other places that we have to look at that there's this level of lack of accountability, and the harm that comes to people. I mean, these are people's lives, the impacts, not just the person who received a vaccine or received a medical device or received some kind of medication, but it impacts their families, it impacts their communities, and all those things that have a mushrooming effect. And I think that we've got to be grounded in understanding that of the negative way that impacts people, and if there's more accountability, then there's going to be the type of assurance, I believe, that will create a transparency in the vaccine development process, and more transparency in government. And I just want to take a quick detour, because that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, is that we've got to have more transparency in what we do in government, right? And so that there needs to be greater legislation to create the process of transparency. So I think that when we have government grants, whether it's CDBG money, community development block grants, or other types of funding that go to different companies or municipalities, states, counties, that we need to have, that the public needs to have access to how that transpired and when it transpired, so that we know that where the money went. And then that level of accountability pushes itself through. And then we know what's going on with our tax dollars. It's because the tax dollars of the people. And so then it's our responsibility to have the people know what's going on with the money that we're spending on their behalf. And I see no difference in terms of what we do here on this kind of legislation, that if there's money that's gone to pharmaceutical industry to develop something or to disseminate something, that the people should know, and that the transparency both on the pharmaceutical side as well as on the government side needs to be much greater. And I'm definitely going to push for those things.
Thank you for sharing that. There's a couple things I just want to reiterate. Accountability 100% when it comes to pharmaceutical manufacturers. If there's no accountability there, there's no incentive for better, safer vaccines, right? And we're talking about our most vulnerable, our children on day 1 or day 2 when they're getting their first shots. Accountability and transparency is what we're looking for, and choice at the end of the day. And I think transparency in government, like you said, overall, I think on any side of the aisle, no matter who you are, you would agree that at the federal level, especially, transparency is something that we absolutely need and we're not getting. Right. And it's concerning. So I appreciate your stance on that and sharing that, because I totally agree with you. Mel, you have any quick fire questions for Akil?
Yes, I do, Akil. So this is our quick fire question round.
Okay.
So we're going to get a little more intimate and up close and personal with you, and we just have a few questions. So tell us what your first paid job was.
First paid job. Well, it's funny. The very, very first paid job was when I was maybe in 4th or 5th grade. I was a newspaper boy delivery. I rode my bike around delivering newspapers.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so what is your current favorite restaurant?
In West Orange, there's a restaurant. It's a vegetarian restaurant. As a matter of fact, it's a vegan restaurant called So Delish.
Awesome.
Are you vegan? Did you tell us that?
I was vegan for about 13 years. I venture into poultry at this time, but for the most part, I'm a vegetarian.
We forgive you. I'm pretty paleo, so we don't have to get into that debate. But
Right.
I'm with you, Akil. I'm with you.
Food is medicine.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's, and you know, I'll take a 2-second detour because I think that that's the actually key, that we need to make sure that we have accessibility to a good quality food, and that there's other kinds of things that the government can sanction. If we look around the world, it's not just about having pharmaceutical drugs, but also if we look historically, more traditional healing modalities look at herbs and food and water and other kinds of remedies that have been proven to heal people over the years, and we got to create some way within the federal government to permit those things to be utilized, whether it's using through insurance or other things, you know, and having it being, I think one of the things is, and this is, I think, important for your discussion or our discussion, is that we've got to look at and address the issues concerning access to healthcare. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm pushing for healthcare for all. I think you got to have a simple way to get access to healthcare.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to jump in. I love talking about public health measures that transcend the for-profit pharmaceutical industry. Let's talk about getting clean water to communities. It's unbelievable, really, across the country, how many cities and towns that don't have their citizens don't have clean water. Actually, the town next over it here in Bergen County, my parents had to recently put in a water system because the water is undrinkable and will be for the next few years. I mean, we're talking about 2022 and communities don't have clean water that's safe to drink. And, you know, luckily for my parents, they're able to afford a system that they can put in their house. But what about in communities where people can't afford a system for a couple $1,000s? They shouldn't be going out having to buy bottled water. I mean, it's a very simple public health issue: clean water, you know, fresh, whole foods, vitamin D, talking about vitamin C, all of these things that we really could be talking about a lot more.
Yes.
Keep people less vulnerable when it comes to a viral outbreak.
Right, because in the end, the whole thing is about making sure that people have the things that strengthen their immune system, and clean water, good, healthy, nourishing food. Those are key to people's having excellent health, and so those are the things that speak volumes to what you're already talking about.
Right. Yep. That brings us right back to the PAC's mission as individuals working on our own health, so that as a community, we're a healthy community. And that preserves public health. So, yep. Sorry. Go ahead, Mel. I'll get off my soapbox. That's my hill.
I'm slowing down my quick fire questions. No worries.
Quick fire.
So, Akil, do you have any pets in your home?
Fish. My daughter has fish.
Awesome. Okay. And when we spoke earlier with the PAC, we talked about a lot of the travel that you had done throughout your career. So tell us the most interesting destination that you visited.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say probably either Nigeria or South Africa. South Africa was amazing because there's such a diversity of environment, right? You go when I was in Pretoria and Johannesburg, it's very different than being in Cape Town. And you know, the people, the culture, the history, learning and sharing that, and looking at the similarities between and the difference between the United States was really remarkable. And I had a great time in Nigeria. I got, you know, was there invited by one of the kings, who's called the Oni, and he's the king of all the Yoruba people. So it was amazing.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yes.
What is the last TV series that you watched?
Just got turned on to this, and it was really interesting. The Man Who Fell to the Earth. Really, really interesting show. And I don't watch that much TV, so this could have been from a couple of years ago for all I know. It just happened to come on my radar, and I was watching it, and it was fascinating. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, but it was very fascinating.
Awesome. Tell us your most relatable historian.
For me and what I do, I would have to say W.E.B. Du Bois.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. And lastly, we always like to ask the candidates that we're interviewing, what does health freedom mean to you?
It means that we, as individuals, as families, we have the power of choice for what we see, how we experience health, and how health, the choices that we make, and the things that happen to our bodies and to those of our children. And so then that we would have the freedoms to navigate ourselves in the United States and possibly the world, understanding that the ultimate health choices, the things that are on in our bodies, are the things that we chose, and that even if there has a negative consequence, that if we chose it, then it was our choice. Right. But if we don't know all the, going back to transparency, if we don't know all the things that brought that into being, or there's some hidden research or data, then those things could bring harm to us and we don't have access to it. So we need to be able to have the ultimate choice. And if scientists, and I'm a scientist, right, as a sociologist, we do research. And so I have a book out and several things that I've written, and that we have to have that level of transparency. So industry that uses science needs to have the same level of transparency so that people can make the best decisions. Even if something didn't go well for the research, then we as people need to know what went well, and then we can make the choices. Even if it's experimental and we choose to do it, we've chosen to do so understanding the potential risks. But if we don't know the information, then we can't make well-informed choices about the things that impact ourselves and our families.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
So before I pass it along to Marin to wrap up, please share with our audience any way that we can support you, or any final words that you have that you'd like to share. Yes.
So first of all, I want to thank you all again for inviting me here. Thank you for the endorsement. I really, I see lots of alignment. This is, as I said, is a movement that we are the change. And I see what this PAC is doing as part of that movement. I just ask people to join us as we transform the lives of people in the United States. And they can see me at www.akilkhalfani.com. And we need help with donations. We need help on getting the vote out and making sure that we get all the things that we need to on that day. So please check out our website and reach out to us. Our email is info@akilkhalfani.com. So those are all the places that they can reach us, and we want to hear their voices. That's the other part, is that it's about the voices of people, and not just hearing myself. So that's why I'm appreciative of this platform, because here I get to present some things, but I'm also hearing the concerns of your families and being representative of folks in the PAC. So thank you. We are, well, the other thing I say is that we are, in terms of the voting is on next week, Tuesday. So it's June the 7th, and I'm B1 in Essex County, and in Hudson and Union County, I'm 1B, and then Hudson and Union County were 1C. So vote for us, make a stand for a positive change for your 10th Congressional district. Thank you.
Thank you, Akil. Wait, I want you to repeat that one more time. In Hudson, repeat that one more time.
Yes,
what column you
in
are.
Hudson and Union counties, it's 1C.
Okay.
And in Essex County, it's 1B.
Got it. Okay.
And that's Tuesday. So either you got your ballot in the mail already, or you're going to go to the polls, and that's when it's going to happen there on Tuesday.
Awesome. Akil, such a pleasure to have you.
You.
There you have it. I mean, NJPHIPAC up close and personal with our endorsement of Congressional District 10, Dr. Akil Khalfani. Really, we hope it's clear by now why the PACs decided to endorse Akil in this upcoming primary election, like he said, on June 7th. If you reside in District 10, or if you have family and friends that do, please spread the word of how important it is to help and support Akil's election. Tuesday, June 7th, if you're in Essex County, vote 1B. If you're in Hudson or Union, column 1C. And it's not just advantageous, it's imperative to have strong representation for New Jersey and our country. Our future and our children's future depends on it. Again, as we mentioned earlier, the success of the PAC relies on contributions from individuals like you. And if you are not a contributor, but would like to, please visit our website at www.njphipac.org. And if you are able and in District 10, please, or even beyond, and want to see Akil in Congress, please find Akil and help and support his campaign for election. So thank you so much. Get out the vote, June 7th. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Akil. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.